Gustav, a construction worker, toiled on the steep roof of the village church. Carefully, he removed rotten tiles, for the work demanded intense concentration. He watched every step, yet an old beam unexpectedly snapped beneath his foot. With a loud crunch, the wood gave way, and his hand scrabbled for purchase. But the loose tile in his hand could not save him. His heart pounded wildly. He felt an unstoppable lurch. Then he slipped, his balance irrevocably lost. A cry escaped his throat. The familiar sky spun rapidly. He could no longer hold on. Gustav plunged deep through the newly formed hole in the roof. This was no ordinary fall. The descent began with the creaking of wood, then the rustle of wind. But swiftly, everything transformed into a deep, vibrating thrum. He felt a strong, irresistible pull enveloping him. For moments, his tools and worn clothes disintegrated into sparkling particles. They then reassembled as the sky became a kaleidoscope of flowing ribbons of light. Iridescent colors and strange lights rushed past him. He fell deeper and deeper. The world around him twisted, becoming fantastical and alien. But the high, shimmering hum abruptly ceased. Then only silence remained. Gustav landed softly on soft, moss-covered ground. Dazed, he came to his senses. He rubbed his eyes and looked around in astonishment. Gigantic trees glowed sapphire blue, producing a soft, rhythmic pulse in the background. The air smelled sweet and unfamiliar. Everything around him glittered and sparkled wondrously. He suddenly missed the familiar scent of sawdust. His old, clattering coffee cup, which sat on the windowsill every morning, he sorely missed. Then he discovered a tiny, luminous moss spider clinging arduously to a blade of grass, its glow now faint. In his chest, Gustav felt a slight, pleasant thrum. It was a subtle, unobtrusive vibration of the world. Gustav slowly sat on the soft, mossy ground. He was still dazed by what had transpired. He gazed in awe at the shimmering trees. He listened to the gentle hum of the magical world. This soft, rhythmic sound seemed to emanate from the very roots of the trees, filling the entire clearing. He tried to comprehend the incredible, to grasp what had befallen him. Simultaneously, he felt a strange pull. An inner calm overcame him. He breathed deeply the sweet scent of blossoms and moss. The alien beauty began to captivate him. Gustav followed the gentle glow further. It led him deeper into the glittering forest. There he discovered a river whose water was clear as glass. It flowed lightly and gracefully over the pebbles. These stones shimmered in all the colors of the rainbow, making a soft, almost ringing sound like many tiny bells. He bent down to drink a sip. The water was refreshingly cool. He felt the world's magic gently tickle him. A pleasant tingling spread in his mouth. It was a completely new sensation. He smiled in surprise. This world was full of small wonders. He reached a rock formation. From it seemed to come soft, incomprehensible voices. It sounded like an eternal whisper in the wind. Gustav tried to dismiss them as mere wind noises. He was almost annoyed at his mind playing tricks on him. Yet the voices, which he now perceived as a dissonant version of the thrum he already felt, grew stronger. They spoke of a fading light and a silent melody of the glittering roots. Gustav felt a faint unease and sadness. He didn't yet understand the full meaning, but he knew that something was wrong. The magic of this world seemed wounded. Curiously, Gustav followed the whispers of the rocks. It led him to a hidden tree cave. It was concealed within the trunk of an ancient tree. Cautiously, he knocked on the gnarled bark. A gruff, gnarled voice invited him to enter. "Who disturbs my peace?" it grumbled. Gustav hesitated briefly. Then he entered the narrow cave. There sat an old gnome with a long snow-white beard. It was Kuno. He scrutinized Gustav with suspicion. His deep green eyes twinkled from under bushy brows. The scent of herbs and damp earth filled the small space. A small fire crackled cozily. Gustav was surprised. He had never seen a gnome before. Kuno questioned Gustav about his origin. He frowned when he heard about Gustav's profession as a construction worker. A pragmatist in my magical world? Kuno's eyes twinkled mischievously. Before you seek answers, try to paint the sky blue. Show me you know the color of hope before you ask for light. Gustav stood bewildered. "Paint the sky blue?" he murmured. Kuno then spoke, with long pauses, about the fading magic of the glittering roots. He explained that their silent melody was dying out. The veil moss, he said, was a symptom of neglect. It was a loss of faith in magic itself. Kuno gave Gustav a complicated riddle with an intentionally ambiguous clue. Where the mountain buries its heart and the river loses its song, there seek the beginning where the old bends. Gustav muttered skeptically, "Magic fading? Sounds like a rotten beam in the foundation. Best to shore it up before everything collapses." Kuno urgently warned him. The portal home would only open for a short time. It would only be open once the magic had fully reawakened. With Kuno's challenging riddle in his mind and the urgent warning about dwindling time ringing in his ears, Gustav overcame a dense root network at the forest's edge. Every step was firm. He knew he not only had to find a way home, but perhaps he could also help this new world. His pragmatic mindset receded. A deep determination seized him. He gazed into the expanse of the forest, ready to make the silent melody resonate again, and to find his way home. He was no hero in the traditional sense, but he had tools and a clear mind, and now a feeling heart. Gustav followed a narrow, winding path, lined with countless, brightly glowing mushrooms. Their soft light danced on the mossy ground, casting long shadows and creating an almost unreal atmosphere. He rubbed his forehead. Kuno's complicated riddle, where the mountain buries its heart and the river loses its song, there seek the beginning, where the old bends, vexed him. With a stick, he pensively drew lines in the soft forest floor, as if sketching a blueprint. He meticulously examined the mushrooms, touching their caps, attempting to decipher their grounding and anchoring with his construction worker's logic. The first trail he gleaned from Kuno's words seemed to lead him in an unexpected, perhaps misleading direction. The earthy scent of mushrooms and damp forest filled his nose as he wound his way through the tall trees and ferns, delving ever deeper into the mystery of the fantasy world. Finally, Gustav reached a small spring nestled in a rock crevice. Its water didn't babble, it sang. Yet the melody emanating from the spring's depths was unusually faint, almost lamenting, as if the spring itself were weeping. Gustav listened, captivated, feeling his own weariness carried away by the song. He noticed the water flowed haltingly and with a dull gleam. The surrounding plants appeared slightly yellowed, their colors muted, a sorrowful image of dwindling magic. A pang in his heart pierced Gustav, a clear sign of the glittering roots silencing, and the urgency of his mission became even more apparent to him. The scent of fresh mineral water and damp rock hung in the air, mingled with a touch of melancholy.
In a silent moss-covered grove, permeated by a gentle emerald-green glow and enveloped in magical mists, Gustav made another sorrowful discovery. A glow butterfly, whose normally radiant wings now only faintly gleamed, trembled helplessly in the warm surroundings. Gustav felt deep compassion for the small creature. With a lump in his throat, he realized that the fading of magic was not just an abstract threat, but caused real suffering in this beautiful world. The image of the weak butterfly intensified his desire to help, a desire that extended beyond mere homecoming and took on a deep personal meaning. The fresh, damp scent of forest and magical mist surrounded him, yet the silence of the grove now felt more sorrowful than peaceful.
In a meadow full of dark, velvety shadow blossoms that glowed upon touch, Gustav encountered the shy forest spirit Lyra. She was desperately trying to save a threatened lumina plant, which glowed faintly and was clasped by dense veil moss. Lyra initially shied away from Gustav, her semi-translucent form darting almost invisibly through the blossoms. Gustav approached cautiously, seeing how the moss actively suffocated the plant. With his skillful yet surprisingly sensitive hands for such delicate work and an improvised stick, he carefully removed the tenacious moss. A soft, damp smacking sound was heard as the parasitic moss reluctantly loosened. Gustav murmured in his pragmatic way that even the biggest problems often only required a little skill and the right approach. The plant glowed more brightly again. Lyra, drawn by his kindness and help, clasped her hands together like delicate leaves before her face, slowly opened them, and with a barely audible hum like a breath of wind, amplified by a shower of luminous particles, pointed to a glittering stone under a blossom that was to answer his questions. The meadow, filled with the sweet scent of undiscovered blossoms, became for a moment a battleground of life.
The glittering stone led Gustav to a hidden, circular clearing with fairy rings of luminous, vibrant green moss and tiny, glittering flowers. As he cautiously stepped into one of the rings, fairy voices whispered softly but clearly. They corrected Kuno's initially ambiguous riddle. It is not the old that bends, but the old that anchors the mountain's heart, where the river regains its song. They guided him to the oldest guardian and simultaneously reminded him that the time for the portal was relentlessly shortening, like a grain of sand slipping through fingers, if the magic continued to fade. A mysterious, playful, and ethereal atmosphere enveloped him, filled with the sweet, floral scent of pure magic. Tall, ancient trees enclosed the clearing like protective guardians, only hesitantly revealing their secrets.
The oldest guardian turned out to be the colossal, grumpy, talking willow tree Brum, whose massive branches hung low over a dark, still moor pond. Gustav asked him about the glittering roots. Brum rumbled with a deep voice, filled with long rrr sounds that seemed to come from the deepest core of the tree. Rrr, another one, mistaking trees for ears? What do you want, human? Disturb my peace? He complained about the disturbance and challenged Gustav to first re-secure a loose, exposed anchor root on his own trunk that threatened to slip. Brum observed Gustav closely to see if he lost patience with this menial task. Gustav skillfully used his construction worker abilities. He assessed the root's condition, searched for the best leverage point, as he would with a dilapidated foundation, to securely re-anchor the root and restore its grounding. He was surprised how similar the statics of magical nature were to his construction sites. Only then, after some persuasion, Brum pointed with a branch to the secret entrance behind a waterfall, emitting a deep, contented sigh that sounded like a profound thank you. The scent of damp decay and old tree hung heavy in the air. On his way through the forest, Gustav stumbled into a dense, suddenly appearing fog of illusions. He immediately felt a subtle, unpleasant coldness emanating from the fog, an echo of the dwindling magic caused by the veil moss. The fog not only obscured his sight, but also caused slight disorientation, filling Gustav's thoughts with petty, unsettling doubts. He saw blurred shapes that shifted into phantoms, and heard deceptive sounds whispering his name, trying to lure him away. Gustav was on the verge of turning back, for the fog fed his doubts about his own perception, and almost made him believe that his mission was futile. Yet, with stoic construction worker's logic and trust in his practical senses, he concentrated on the ground beneath his feet and the texture of the tree trunks. Thus he managed to find a clear path through, while the smell of damp earth and a subtle, unpleasant cold surrounded him.
Having overcome the deceptive fog, Gustav found the waterfall described by Brum. The loud roar of the water filled the air, yet behind it he indeed discovered a narrow crevice in the rocks. The curtain of shimmering water perfectly concealed the entrance. Gustav carefully squeezed through, the rough rock face scraping against his overalls. Inside, the sound of the water was muffled, and a dark, damp tunnel opened before him. Light only penetrated diffusely through the waterfall. Beyond, the darkness of the unknown beckoned. The scent of fresh water and wet rock filled the air as he entered a new passage into the depths of the magical world. A feeling of adventure and uncertainty seized him.
The dark tunnel unexpectedly opened into an impressive cave chamber. The reflective rock walls mirrored a soft, warm light emanating from numerous glittering stalactites and stalagmites. These shimmered like internally lit crystals, dancing in all the colors of the rainbow. Gustav marveled at the natural beauty of this place, a true wonder of nature and magic, and felt very close to the source of magic. The light here was still strong and pulsating, but he clearly felt it weakening in other, darker parts of the chamber. This was proof that the world's suffering cast its shadow even here. A soft dripping of water and gentle echoes filled the quiet space. The scent was mineral, damp, and purely stony, an atmosphere of awe-inspiring stillness and ancient energy.
A dense, narrow passage, spanned by intertwined tree roots, formed a trembling bridge over a deep chasm. Gustav carefully tested each root, his calloused hands feeling for stability. He mumbled to himself about how one would inspect a dilapidated foundation. With the precision of a construction worker, he placed one foot in front of the other, balancing over the abyss. The creaking of the roots beneath his boots echoed, and the sound of dripping water from the depths reminded him of the danger. He remained focused, his eyes fixed on the safe path. This final physical hurdle confirmed to him that even in a magical world, his practical skills were crucial. He breathed deeply as he reached the safe side. A feeling of relief washed over him. He looked back, knowing the journey was almost complete. Gustav reached a high rock outcrop and looked out over the withered forest spread beneath him. Faded colors and the icy cold of the dwindling magic filled the air. A feeling of overwhelm gripped him. The task seemed insurmountably vast. The sight of the dying forest caught in his throat. For a brief moment, he feared he had definitively missed his way home. The melancholy atmosphere and the sigh of the wind mirrored his despair. Yet, from this momentary hopelessness, a new, deep determination arose. He felt that this beautiful world had also become his own, and he made the decision to give his all, not just for himself, but for the entire balance of the world. Deep in the heart of the forest, Gustav reached a decayed stone altar. A faint magical presence was still perceptible here. The place appeared lifeless and withered. Around the altar, the glittering roots were barely discernible. They were smothered by dense gray veil moss that had laid over them like a cold blanket. Their silent melody had almost completely faded. Only a faint rasping sound could be heard. Gustav felt how the surroundings nearly absorbed all magic. The scent of mold, damp stone, and decay hung heavy in the still air. This was the heart of the problem, the origin of the world's suffering.
Behind the decayed altar, Gustav discovered a small, hidden cave. Inside, a giant, almost extinguished, glowing cocoon hovered in the center of the chamber. He saw that the glittering roots were directly connected to this cocoon. They could barely channel energy to it, as their magical, silent melody had been smothered by the veil moss. Only a tiny, flickering flame weakly licked within the cocoon, on the verge of dying out. This heart of the world beat only faintly. Gustav's heart ached at the sight of this fading splendor. The oppressive atmosphere, the earthy mineral scent, everything cried out for help. He now understood the full scope of his mission. This was the soul of this world. Gustav had built a small makeshift shelter of branches and leaves. As he pondered and discarded various mechanical solutions, the curious dragon hatchling Glimmer visited him. Suddenly, it scurried past and snatched a shiny piece of Gustav's tool. It was playful and fascinated by the gleam, pushing it across the ground and unconsciously polishing the surface. Gustav's first reaction was a chuckle, like a child playing with tools. But Glimmer's innocent play gave Gustav a crucial, ingenious idea. He realized that the glittering roots must not be repaired, but polished and cared for, like delicate machines that have rusted. Instead of running away, Glimmer hopped around Gustav, playfully luring him to a spot with particularly weak roots, almost completely covered by veil moss. The scent of damp wood and leaves mingled with the faint scurry of the dragon hatchling. Glimmer led Gustav to a clearing where the glittering roots were weakest, densely covered by veil moss. Gustav immediately realized his normal, robust tools would be too coarse. He remembered Kuno's words about nurturing nature. Skillfully, he improvised a root brush from flexible branches and soft forest fibers. He began to carefully remove the veil moss. Immediately, he felt a direct, painful magical resistance. The moss pulsated darkly, writhed, and sent out cold shivers that numbed his hands. It attempted to deter him from his work with whispering illusions. "Blast it, this stuff has claws," Gustav muttered. A short magical recoil coursed through him. Yet he persevered with unwavering tenacity. He focused on the gentle care the roots needed. He worked with utmost diligence. Slowly, the roots beneath his hands began not only to glow, but also to emit a delicate, silent melody. This melody swelled as the moss detached and dissolved into nothing. A feeling of triumph coursed through Gustav. While Gustav freed the roots, light returned to the cocoon chamber. The cocoon began to pulse intensely and glow. It was audibly nourished by the swelling, silent melody of the glittering roots, which now flowed through the world with full force. A feeling of warmth and magic filled the room. The small, flickering flame in the cocoon became a radiant beacon. Glimmer, who had followed Gustav, danced excitedly around, its tiny scales sparkling in the bright light. The heart of the world beat strongly again, more powerful and clearer than before. Gustav felt deep satisfaction. He had restored the balance. On a nearby rock plateau, a shimmering curtain of light then appeared, the portal back to his world. It was a gate of rainbow colors. With one last grateful glance at the luminous fantasy world, Gustav stepped through the portal. He instantly found himself back on the village church bell tower. The hole in the roof had vanished as if by magic. He rubbed his eyes, but his clothes and his heart bore the indelible marks of the adventure. He had become a changed man, filled with a deep inner glow and an unwavering certainty. His clothes might still be dusty, but his heart carried the profound realization that even a simple construction worker, with compassion, ingenuity, and courage, could save the world. He had learned that true magic often lay hidden in the most unassuming things. Mindful interaction with life and nurturing balance, that was what truly mattered. He had become a quiet savior.